what are the exam topics about this particular certification? So earlier there were 6 modules, now there are only 3 modules. They consolidated, there are not much changes, just few services were there which is out of scope now, and they just realigned the sections, they consolidated, and now there are only 3 sections. First section is fully about the concept, either it is related to Microsoft Azure or cloud computing. Next is about the Azure architecture, how it is globally spread, like geography, region pairs, and availability zones, regions, how they are connected, and the core services. So this module is very important because it carries around 35 to 40% of your exam. And here we will talk about all the services related to compute, storage, network. Those are the core services. Then we have some additional services like databases, we have IAM services related to the security, and we have some advanced services like artificial intelligence and machine learning. Let's move to the third section, that is about the Azure management, how Azure we can Azure manage our infrastructure in Azure through the subscriptions, through the management groups, and there are some services related to the security compliance and all that. All things will be covered on the third section. So, guys, let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking, is there any default spending limit we are having when it comes to the spending limit for the Azure free account? Here, they are especially talking about the free account. So, the option we are having, yes or no. So, for this question, let me tell you, whenever you create free account, Azure free account, you will get $200 that is only valid for first 30 days. So, yes, we are having the spending limit for the Azure free account. There are few services available for always free. There are around 40 plus services available. Just check the Azure free account. But for this question, we will go with option yes. This is our right answer. Let's talk about next question now. Let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking, a company has just set up an Azure subscription. The company is planning on creating several resource groups. By creating additional resource group, would the company incur any additional cost? So the option we are having, yes or no. As we know that resource groups are only for the management purpose, and it is helping us to separate our resources for different types of. If we are planning to keep network resources together, then we can create one resource group for that one. If we want to create for one another resource group for compute, then we can do it. It is just for logical separation. It's also the thing is, in Azure there is no cost associated with it. So in this case, we will go with no for our answer. So this is our right choice for this question. Let's talk about next question now. You see what they are asking in this question. You are planning on creating an Azure free account. Which two of the following options are correct when it comes to the Azure free account? So the thing is, as they always, like Azure or any other cloud platform, they always in the foundation course or the certification or fundamental certification, they always talk about the pricing and the features what they are offering to you, right? So you can get more questions on this section. That's why I covered this question. So in this question, the option we are having, you get free access to all the services for 12 months. As we know that we get only 200 credit for 30 days. So all the services for 12 months is not free. So it's not correct. You get 200 USD worth of credit that you can spend during the first 30 days of sign up. Yes, that is correct. Next, after the 30 days period of USD 200 worth of credit is over, you need to convert to a pay as you go account. Yes, if you want to continue with the services which you want have started or want to continue with your account, you need to convert it to pay as you go account. So this is option seems correct to me. And the last option we are having, you only need to have a valid mobile number to sign up for your account. That is not the actual thing. So the thing is, but you should have the valid credit card to create the accounts, right? So this is not correct. So what are the two options we will go with? We will go with option 2 and option 3. Let's talk about next question now. Let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking, General Data Protection Regulation, that is known as GDPR, defines data protection and privacy rules. The option we are having, true or false. So the thing is, let's understand what exactly the GDPR is. Actually, GDPR gives rise to the people to manage personal data which is collected by their organization. Okay, so there are many points need to be considered. You just need to go through the GDPR, and you will get in on Microsoft site as well, or in general also. So what are those points actually? Those points are like, who is your data controller, what data security purposes may you have to perform while you are collecting the data. So these are the guidelines, or we can say the compliance that need to be followed by the organization while they are collecting the data. So the thing is, so it defines the data protection and privacy rules. Yes, it defines. So we will go with the option 2 here. Let's talk about next question now. Let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking it also based on GDPR, that GDPR apply to companies that offer goods or services to individuals in the European Union. The option we are having true or false. So the thing is, GDPR actually introduced some new rules for the organization. Either your organization reside in working or functioning from the European region or outside Europe. It no matter where you or your enterprise are located, but it introduced new rules for the organization that offers goods and services to the people in the European region, or that collect or analyze data for EU, that is European Union residents. They have to follow this one, GDPR compliance. So the thing is, yes, it is applied. So we will go with the true for this question as well. As GDPR is the, we have seen many new questions related to this in latest exam. So it's better just go through that particular article. It is just one page. If you need, just reach me. I will share the link for that one, or you can get it from the Microsoft website. Let's talk about next question now. Let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking, Azure can be used to build a general data protection regulation, that is GDPR compliant infrastructure. True or false? That directly means that do Azure follow GDPR compliance or not? Yes, that is true. That Azure also follow GDPR, and we can create the infrastructure that is GDPR compliance. So we will go with the true for this question. So these type of question, yes or no or true or false, you will get in a bulk. It's not like individual question. You will get it most of the time. It will come like three questions together in a single question. So just so focus more on these questions so you get more marks. Let's see the next question now. Let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking, a company wants to start using Azure. They want to have a declarative way to orchestrate the deployment of various resources types such as role assignments and policy assignment. And what is the solution they are giving? It's a kind of a scenario, and the solution is they decide to use Azure blueprints for that. Would this fulfill the requirement? Yes, that is very much true. In terms of Azure blueprints, in this scenario, what they are asking, actually, Azure blueprints helps our developer to build and make the environment ready as quickly as possible. And also, it's a declarative way to orchestrate the deployment of various resource types. So, in this question, we will go for yes, and that is right choice for our this question. Let's talk about next question now. So let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking, company want to start using Azure. They want to have a declarative way to orchestrate the deployment of various resources types, such as role assignments and policy assignment. The solution they are giving, they decide to use Azure Information Protection. Would this fulfill the requirement? The option we are having, yes or no. To understand this question, we need to understand the Azure Information Protection. What exactly it is? It is actually a cloud-based solution which helps the organization to classify and protect their documents and email. How it classify the documents, like if you are in any organization, you are receiving mails, right, regularly. So they classify your emails if it is for the general purpose or it is for the confidential. So on the basis of classification like C1, C2, C4, 3, C4, we have many kind of classification. It's all depend on the organization how they classify those documents and emails. So that is used for protection of your documents and the emails. But in this question, they are asking that they want to have a declarative way to orchestrate the deployment of various resources types such as role assignment and policy assignment. That is the task of Azure Blueprint. So in this question, they decide to use Azure Information Protection. So that's not correct. So what we will go? We will go for no for this question. Let's talk about next question now. This is the same scenario based question. Let's understand what they are asking. A company wants to start using Azure. They want to have a declarative way to orchestrate the deployment of various resource types such as role assignment and policy assignment. Solution they are giving, they decide to use Azure AD Privileged Identity Manager management. Would this fulfill the requirement? So again, we will go for no. Let's understand what exactly this service do. This service is like Azure AD PIM service. PIM is for privileged identity management service. Privileged identities are administrator account, like we have many admin account or the service account. Those comes under privileged account. So the thing is that this service is normally to manage these administrator or the service account. That purpose we use Azure AD PIM service, not for the declarative way of orchestrate the deployment of various resources. So we will go with no for this question. I hope you find it helpful. Let's see the next question now. Let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking a company has just deployed a set of Azure virtual machines. They want their IT administrative team to get alerts whenever the CPU of the virtual machines goes beyond a certain threshold, whatever their organization set it. Which of the following service could be used for this purpose? The option we are having Azure Advisor, Azure Security Center, Azure Monitor, and Azure AD. So let's understand before answering this question what these services do. If we will talk about Azure Advisor, it's like advising us, or we can say it's suggesting us where we can improve the efficiency of our infrastructure in Azure. So this is just a suggestion service. It don't monitor. Okay, so it will not send any alerts. So in this one, this is wrong. And if we will talk about the Azure Security Center, it is actually help us to manage the security of our resources, and it fulfills three vital roles in our infrastructure. How it continuously check our resources if there is any security threats or not. If it is any threat, then it will secure that threat. That is the second role. And third thing, it defend. That means it detect and resolve those threats. So it will help us to secure our environment, but it don't send any alert like for the CPU goes beyond the threshold. So it is not correct. Azure Monitor, yes, that is the correct service that help us to monitor the CPU usage and send us alert. Azure, if we will talk about Azure AD, it's a identity provider for our cloud solution. So this is how it works. These four services work. So this is not correct. And our correct answer for this question is Azure Monitor. Let's talk about next question now. So guys, let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking we need to match the services with the service categories. As we know, there are main category like database, network, computing, big data. These are the categories we are having in Azure. So these are the services given like Azure Function, Azure Virtual Network, Azure Cosmos DB, Azure Synapse Analytics. So these services belongs to which category we need to identify in this question. So let's talk about one by one. First is Azure Function, as it is serverless computing service, so it will belongs to compute. Next, we have Azure Virtual Network. So this is for logically separate our infrastructure. So it will belongs to networking. Cosmos DB, that is Cosmos database. So it belongs to database service. And in the last, we have Azure Synapse Analytics. So this is the service which belongs to big data, as we are left only one option here. So this is how we need to understand these services. So we need to go through all the services and we need to remember which service comes to which category. So you can also get some questions, then you can easily handle those questions in your exam. So let's talk about next question now. Let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking which feature ensure your application remains online if a high impact maintenance event is required or if there is any hardware failure occur. So the option we are having region, geographies, availability zone, availability set. So to understand this question, we need to understand about what exactly these four features are. If you talk about region, region is actually a geographical area on the planet that contains at least one, or we can say or we can have multiple data centers within the region. So that is talking about the region. Next, we have geographies. Geographies. So geographies actually contains two or more regions that preserves data residency and the compliance boundary. That comes under geography. If we will talk about the availability zone are actually a physically separate location within a region with their own power, cooling, and networking resources. So this is how we define the availability zones. If we'll talk about the availability set, that actually ensures our application remains online if a high impact maintenance event is required or if there is any hardware failure. So in this question, they are asking about this one. So for this question, our answer will be availability set. Let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking what is the physical separate locations with their own power, cooling, and networking in Azure. So the option we have region, we have geographies, availability zones, and availability set. As we already discussed this thing, that availability zones are the physical separate locations with their own power, cooling, and networking in Azure. So for this question, our answer will be availability zone. Let's talk about next. Let's talk about next question. In this question, they are asking what is the geographical area on the planet containing at least one, but potential multiple data centers. That means here we are talking about regions. So in the option we are having region, geographies, availability zones, and availability sets. So for this one, we will go with. So for this question, we will go for the region here. Let's talk about next question now. In this question, they are asking what is the typically containing two or more regions that preserve data residency and compliance boundary. The option we are having region, geographies, availability zone, and availability set. So the thing is for this question. So this question we will go with geographies because geographies typically containing two or more regions that preserve data residency and compliance boundaries. So for this question, our answer will be geographies. So let's talk about next question now. In this question, they are asking which Azure service would you use to monitor threats in your Azure environment by using sensors. So the option we are having Azure Monitor, Azure Security Center, Azure AD Identity Protection, Azure Advanced Threat Protection. So before understanding this question, we need to understand these services, right? So what is actually the Azure Monitor is? Azure Monitor is the service which monitor our resources and that help us to set alerts whenever we find any threshold value message. Next, we have Azure Security Center. Azure Security Center is the service which help us to secure our environment, either it is on premises or Azure. So this is not for the monitoring threats. When we are talking about the Azure AD Identity Protection, it is mainly protecting our identities like our username, accounts, and all. And it's enforced, or we can say we use multi-factor authentication as well under AD Identity Protection. So this is not the service which monitor threat. In the last, we have Azure Advanced Threat Protection. Yes, that is the right choice for this question. And what exactly it is? It uses a sensor to monitor threats, and we use for the purpose Azure Advanced Threat Protection, in short, we know as Azure ATP. Azure ATP is a cloud-based security solution that leverages our on-premises Active Directory signals to identify, detect, and investigate advanced threat. What type of threat it can be? It can be your compromised identities or the malicious action which is happen or occur in our organization. So for this question, we will go with Azure ATP. Let's talk about next question now. Let's talk about this question. In this question, they are asking which Azure service would you use to enforce Azure MFA based on a condition. The option we are having Azure Monitor, Azure Security Center, Azure AD Identity Protection, Azure ATP. As we already discussed these services earlier, and what exactly Azure Monitor? It monitors the resources and send alerts. Azure Security Center secure our environment, and Azure Identity AD Identity Protection. It helps us to protect our identity with the help of multi-factor authentication that is asked in this question. So we will go with this option here. This is our right choice for this question. And in the last, Azure ATP that is used for threat protection for our environment. So for this question, we will go with Azure AD Identity Protection. Let's talk about next question now. In this question, they are asking you need to configure an Azure solution that is able to secure your websites from attacks and generate reports that contain details of attempted attacks. What should you include in your architecture? The option we are having Azure Firewall, Network Security Group, Azure Information Protection, DDoS protection. As you already know that Azure Firewall is to restrict the inbound traffic. So this is not the right choice for this question. When we are talking about the secure your website from attacks and generate reports, Azure a network security group, that is also not correct here. And we'll talk about the Azure Information Protection. It is used. This service is mainly used to protect our emails or documents from the unauthorized access. So this is not the service here. The correct answer for this question will be DDoS protection. DDoS stands for distributed denial of service. What exactly it is? DDoS is a type of attack that tries to exhaust our application resources. That means that the malicious, the person, unauthorized person sent that many requests that our server gets hung and our application is not able to respond to the legitimate query. So in this way, it will not work at all. So so for this one, what we will do, we will use DDoS protection. So actually, Azure has two DDoS service offerings that provide protection from the network attack. What exactly are those? One, we have the basic one, DDoS basic. Next, we have the standard one. So the thing is, DDoS basic protection is integrated with the Azure platform by default, and there is no charge for it, no cost involved for this one. Okay, when we will go with the standard, we need to pay something for that one. So this is how we can solve this question. Let's talk about next question now. In this question, they are asking The process of verifying a user's credential is known as, the option we are having, authorization, authentication, federation, or checking process. So the thing is, if we want to validate the credential of anyone, that comes under authentication. When we are talking about the authorization, it checks the permission that if any user have the access to that resource or not. And federation is something with the same user ID we can access others environment. And the last option we are having, check-in process, that I do not see in Azure what exactly it is. So, but I'm sure that the process of verifying a user's credential is known as authentication. So we will go with authentication for this question. Let's talk about next question now. In this question, they are asking, Contoso manager asked the team to implement continuous deployment process for their application. The team decided to use Azure DevOps for this purpose. Does this service meet their needs? We need to tell in yes or no. So the thing is, before answering this question, we need to understand what exactly this Azure DevOps service is. Actually, Azure DevOps comes with a pipeline feature that allows developer to create CI/CD pipeline, that is CI/CD pipeline, that is continuous integration and continuous deployment for their application easily. So here they are continuous deployment they are talking about. So yes, this is the correct service. So the team can use it. Let's talk about next question now. In this question, they are asking that control zone manager asked the team to implement continuous deployment process for their application. So the team decided to use Azure Dev Test Last service. Does this meet their need? Actually, it's not, as we already discussed that it is fulfilled by Azure DevOps service. So what exactly this Azure DevTest Labs is? Azure DevTest Labs service is used to provide sandbox environment to developers and testers, but it does not deliver any feature for building CI/CD pipeline. So it will not work in this case. So here we will go with no option for this question. Let's talk about next question now. In this question, they are asking that consumer company wants to build highly secure IoT application with the help of Azure. What service should they look at first? What they are looking for? They are looking to build highly secure IoT application with the help of Azure. So the option we are having, IoT Central, Azure Sphere, IoT Hub. See, IoT Hub is a bidirectional service which helps us to communicate between IoT devices and the IoT application. So it is not for securing, securing highly secure IoT application, so it will not work, and it's a PaaS solution, platform as a service. And when we are talking about the IoT central service, it is managed service and it comes under SaaS, and it helps us to build enterprise level solutions, but it will not help us to secure. So we will not go for this one also. If we will talk about Azure Sphere delivers components for building secure end-to-end IoT solution. So E2E IoT solution that is also secure. So this is what they are looking for this question. So we will go with Azure Sphere for this question. Let's talk about next question now. In this question, they are asking, when you try to create multiple Azure virtual machines, you receive a message that you must increase your Azure subscription limit. What should you do to increase the limit? As you know that most of the time we set a quota limit, and there are some default quota limits as well. Did that actually help us uh, to control the spending on our resources? So it will help us to control our Azure cost. So what we do whenever we need to increase the cost, increase the limit, we need to create a new support request for this one. So create a service alert is not work here. Upgrade your support plan will also not. Modify an Azure policy will also not work here. So our answer for this question will be, whenever we need to increase the limit, we need to create a new support request for that paper. Let's talk about next question now. In this question, they are asking, your company is preparing to migrate its public website to Azure. As a next step, the company must plan to. What exactly they need to do? They need to go with a pay monthly usage cost. They need to deploy a VPN, pay extra to transfer all the website data to Azure, reduce the number of connection to the website. So for this question, we will go with, they need to pay monthly usage cost whenever they need to migrate their public website to Azure. Why they need to do this one? Because Azure uses pay as you go model, so that's why they need to pay for this purpose. If you want to know more about it, you need to go with the pricing FAQs available on Microsoft Azure website. You will understand more about it. Let's talk about next question now. In this question, they are asking which feature collects all the logs from various resources into a central dashboard where you can run queries, view graphs, and create alert on certain event. Here, mainly the keywords we are having, we need to run the query and we need to collect all the logs. So the option we are having Azure Security Center. As we know, this is the service which is help us to secure our environment. Event Hub is a real-time data ingestion service that's simple, trusted, and scalable, and it streams millions of events per second. So this is not the service which collects the logs and we can run queries on top of that. Azure Portal Dashboard. This is also not that service because in the last it is mentioned that we need to create alerts as well. So this is what done by the Azure Monitor service. It monitor our resources and whenever we meet the threshold, it sends us alert for that purpose. So for this question, we will go with Azure Monitor. Any doubt, you can directly reach me on Telegram. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to click on like button, share with your friends who wanted to start their cloud journey. Subscribe this channel for more cloud certification related content. See you in next video.